Bear garlic pesto, a loose recipe. I'm sending this bonus letter because I shared on notes that our bear garlic, Allium, ursinum season is underway, and we'd spent much of Sunday gathering, the quickest bit, and preparing different things. So far, pesto, fermented leaves, dried leaves, salt, and pickled flowerbuds. Several people commented and liked the note, thanks, and I know it is a popular, easily identified plant. When Yasmin Chopin asked what recipe I used, I started to type a reply on my phone this morning, then thought it might be of interest to more of you, so decided to send this instead. Also, Substack has just finally introduced recipe cards, so I was interested to see how that might work or look. This is definitely an experiment. I'll undoubtedly turn a Swift recipe list into something longer than it perhaps needs to be, but with more flavour and depth. As usual, I'm recording a voiceover, so you can listen if you prefer. If this doesn't show up in your email client, then sure you click through to have a peek. Bear garlic pesto. Description. When the bear garlic arrives in the woods, that, in my opinion, is the roar of spring, often accompanied by a veritable riot of birdsong. Here, this year, it is much earlier than last, usually arriving later in March. In your corner of the world, it might be later still. It was April and into May when I lived in the UK. It very much depends on the microclimates where you find it and our rapidly altering climate. Don't get too hung up on quantities or precise ingredients. Make this to match your own tastes. There is no cooking time unless you're eating it straight away, and the preparation time depends on how long it takes to forage, such as an 80-kilometre round-trip cycle for Barry and Jojo, or a 6-minute dawdle to the woods for us, and whether prepping is a communal, slow affair with a late Sunday morning apéro and conversation, or a swifter, more efficient process. My advice is to do this when you have time and want to create the pesto for the joy of turning wild food into something tasty, something which will remind you of the collecting, the season, and the nature, weeks or months into the future. This serves, well, it varies. I used 500 grams of bear garlic, which made 13 small glass jars. And the equipment you need is either a hand blender or standing blender, mixing bowl, kitchen, scale, knife and chopping board, measuring spoons, wooden spoon for mixing, cheese grater if your cheese is not already grated, clean, sterilized and sealable glass jars to store. Baby food jars are superb for this if you can get them. Ingredients: bear garlic, Allium ursinum, aka Ramson's, wild garlic, wood garlic, onion grass, cowleek, buckrams and others. Quantity as much as you think you need. For the sake of this recipe, quantity equals 1 portion, for example 100 grams. Oil. I use extra virgin olive oil, but you can also use others, such as sunflower for example. 1 portion. E.g., if you use 100 grams of wild garlic, you'd use 100 milliliters of oil. Same weight. Hard cheese. You can use pecorino, parmesan, or as I do, Gran Padano. You can even add other cheeses such as Comté. Half a portion, e.g. 50 grams. Nuts or seeds. I used pine nuts, pignon de pin, for my first batch of this season, but the next will be walnuts. You can also use others such as pumpkin seeds, macadamia, hazelnuts, pistachios, almonds, or cashews, for example. Half a portion, e.g. 50 grams. Sea salt. We get our salt from salt pans at Grison whenever we or anyone we know visits, but any decent sea salt will do the trick. This is to taste, so everyone's idea of salt levels differs. Portion-wise, this is tricky, but anywhere between a 20th and a 10th could work. My advice is to add a little and check, e.g. between 5 grams and 10 grams. Optional black pepper. I don't add this as I like to add it to dishes to taste, but you could if you wished. Directions. Begin with collecting your bear garlic. I try and only pick the best leaves, not too big, not too small, firmly in the Goldilocks zone. I also ensure I don't pick any with either bird droppings or splashes of mud from a wild boar rooting nearby, and I usually try not to pick stems. Rinse the leaves when you are home. A salad spinner is quickest for ensuring they are well dried after. Roughly chop the washed and dried leaves. If you picked any with stems, you can remove them now, but honestly, I often just leave a few for variety of texture. Put some leaves in your bowl and add a touch of the oil. Then use your hand blender to mix. If you have a proper blender, that would certainly be quicker. Keep adding leaves and a bit more oil until all is blended thoroughly. You may find you've used up the oil, which is fine, or there might be a little left, which is also fine. Chop, crush, or blend your nuts or seeds to whatever consistency you like. Some like it coarser, others prefer to almost powder theirs. Then stir and blend this into the leaves and oil mixture. I like to blend mine, but you can just stir well with a big wooden spoon. If your hard cheese is not grated, grate it now. Then add this in a similar way, either stirring or blending. Optional, leave the cheese out if freezing and add it when cooking. I don't, I add mine and freeze anyway, and it doesn't seem to make much difference to my palate. Add the salt to taste, mix thoroughly and keep tasting until it is again all Goldilocks. Sorry for this analogy, it's one I've liked to use for years and often crops up when sharing recipes. I'm rarely about measuring perfect quantities. Add pepper if using it. Again, this is to taste. Carefully spoon the mixture into the jars, ensuring you do not overfill, especially if you are freezing the jars. If you have leftover oil, top the jars up with this, and you can always add more anyway. As with the filling, do not overfill. This will keep in the fridge for a while, and in the freezer for even longer. How long? That depends, I guess. Generally, I find it gets eaten before it has any chance to go off. And, as you'll probably not be surprised to hear, I'm not a fan of fixed expiry dates. So much depends on individual storage methods, batches, etc. In my opinion, expiry dates can cause too much fear and wastage. Just use your eyes, your nose, your tongue, be sensible. If it was stored outside a freezer, possible if you know how to seal jars safely, but that's not in the scope of this recipe, then I'd be more wary than if it went straight in a freezer. Category: sauce, pesto, pasta. Keywords: foraging, forage, foraged, wild food, ancestral skills. Cuisine: French, Italian, German, fusion. Wild. Diet: gluten-free, vegetarian. There we go. My first recipe here in my own special style, probably not using the cuisine, diet, category, etc. sections as they're meant to be used, but hey, I hope this is useful, interesting, or just fun. I find there is a deep and ancient joy in turning wild ingredients into something to use in the kitchen. It connects us to the past and to the present, both. Do please send this to anyone you know who lives near bear garlic. What do you think to this recipe? Do you also make bear garlic pesto or anything else from the plant? What's your favourite foraged ingredient in the year? If you enjoyed this and can afford to, you can send a one-off tip via this button. You can also subscribe if you don't already. As of 2026, I won't be paywalling anything new other than my fiction once a story is finished. As such, all paid subscriptions are a means to support me and my work if you can afford it. I'm going to be sharing things this year which I think might help a lot of people, and hiding them behind a paywall does not sit well with me. And, as ever, thank you so much for reading. Enjoy getting out to forage.